The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein, former publisher of Automotive News, is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on Sirius XM Business Radio.
Hi, I'm Jason Stein, host of Cars and Culture. Before we get to this week's interview, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by Connected by Reynolds & Reynolds. I love the conversations I get to have on this show because they're exactly that. They're conversations. Another podcast I found worth checking out for conversations is Connected by Reynolds & Reynolds. Greg Ulan goes deep with guests on everything from used car acquisitions to finding your niche and selling to it. I definitely recommend adding Connected to your rotation.
Welcome to Cars and Culture in episode 121. I'm your host, Jason Stein. The man can still remember his first encounter with the love of his life. It was 41 years ago. He was a boy seated behind the windshield of a car that was 50 years old. Dad was by his side, and they were rolling up and down the pavement at a racetrack in rural Connecticut. But not just any car or any track. They were going 35 miles an hour, but young Dicky Riegel was flying. I'll never forget that experience, he remembers now. From the passenger seat of the 1931 classic DuPont vehicle, one of the world's most rare cars, the vehicle and track became one in his mind, cementing the experience and lighting a fire. For a local boy who grew up miles from the track, the location was magic. Lime Rock Park. 3 words that conjure a car dream. And in 1982, it was a moment caught in time. But a moment that would set up a memorable chapter in the boy's life. A chapter that now brings Dicky Riegel full circle. He's never forgotten that moment. That's the kind of impression Lime Rock leaves with you. Dicky Riegel, a member of the prestigious DuPont family, appropriately in a DuPont, and home at Lime Rock. Today, he's the caretaker of the famous track, one of the only 2 racetracks on the prestigious National Historic Landmark Registry. It's edging its way to its 70th year as a facility, but it has new life under Riegel's leadership. He gets to manage the whole experience. And Lime Rock is more than a track. It's a mindset. Carved into those Connecticut hills, it's in the middle of a neighborhood that also might as well be on Mars in terms of uniqueness. It brings the best to the track. Sterling Moss, Mario Andretti, Paul Newman have all raced there. Skip Barber has run his school from the location for decades. Competitors seek it out. Racers fight with its corners and high speeds, one of the fastest tracks in America, despite its relatively short distance. And today, as a relatively new owner of the facility with his business partner, Riegel's making sure that Lime Rock's history, special qualities, and wild dreams stay on track. In many ways, he's the perfect caretaker, having taken the track at such a young age and racing now today. He manages the complexities of a track used most days of the year, sometimes even for non-race events. And he's managing the expansion of the facility that will have a boutique hotel, a museum, and several affiliations with groups who will explore the mysteries of Lime Rock. Today, he tells the story of Lime Rock on Cars and Culture.
Hi, I'm Dicky Riegel, and I'm here at Lime Rock Park with Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
What a pleasure to have Dicky on the program. He's immersed in all things Lime Rock now, firmly entrenched in his new role. But I do want to start off with a description that a friend of ours gave me about Dicky Riegel. He's tall but not imposing, 6'7", with an ever-present boyish grin that swaps with a determined scowl. He's got both of those looks in his repertoire. Now, the boss of a speedway should probably have both looks in his repertoire, right, Dicky?
I got to say, I hope it's much more the former and less the latter. The scowl, geez, I don't want to be known for that at all.
All right, well, we can work on that. Welcome into the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks very much. It's a delight to be here, Jason. Thank you.
I know you're not going to Pebble Beach. You have a long history with Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is upon us, but there's a really good reason why you're not going to Pebble Beach, which leads to the first question about how it's going at Lime Rock.
Well, thanks so much. And all I can say is it's going really well at Lime Rock Park. It's an honor first and foremost, an honor to be associated with a 66-year-old brand. We're on the National Register of Historic Places. I get to work every day with Skip Barber, the man, the myth. He owned this place for 38 years, and it's only honestly, through Skip's vision that he got in touch with three of us as general partners, myself, my fellow general partners, Charles Mallory and Bill Rickert, and we together formed Lime Rock Group 2.5, or actually we formed it probably 5 years ago, but 2.5 years ago, we effected the transaction with fellow owners that number about 20 strong. And so Lime Rock Park is busy. We are on the cusp of another active weekend here with some partners at Grid Life, which is a up and coming, really young, energetic group that is an automotive culture and community in and of itself. And so we're busy here.
What a treat for you too. I mean, for those who don't know, you went to school basically around the corner and lived the Lime Rock life without knowing that it was going to be this part of your life, right?
Yeah, pretty crazy serendipity. I did grow up with cars all around. My dad, very involved with cars as a young man and then as a young father. And I ended up going to Salisbury School, which is about 5 miles as the crow flies from where I'm sitting right now. And I'm going to say it was in 1982. I think I was 15 at the time. My dad showed up with a 1931 DuPont, and he was taking that car on a rally around New England. And one of the rally stops was here at Lime Rock Park. And that was my introduction to Lime Rock, at the wheel of this imposing 1931 car with my dad sitting next to me. I didn't have a driver's license, but I had driven the car and I knew how to drive it. And, doing laps around Lime Rock Park at maybe a top speed of 35 miles per hour with my dad sitting next to me, going down the downhill under the bridge was just an incredible moment I'll never forget.
You said it cemented in me that the park was a home away from home for me.
I think it probably took a little longer, honestly, for that to come to fruition, because I then did 3 different 3-day racing schools with Skip Barber Racing School. I came here with Road and Track magazine when I was working in advertising. And all of a sudden, this sort of gravitational pull to this place, Lime Rock Park, really got entrenched inside of me. And so it has become a home away from home, and not just for me, but for my wife, who went to school 3 miles away from here, even closer. And now for our kids who have camped here and participated in events, and now my son Richard, who's 27. He's one of our owners. He's part of our ownership group. And so we've got that special relationship now.
You said that your father was the one who influenced you to this motorsports passion. And yet this is not the first multi-generational Riegel involvement at a car event. You grew up in and around vehicles, as you alluded to. What are some of your other memories around vehicles? And maybe particularly, let's just talk about Pebble Beach and the importance of that.
Yeah, I mean, the memories obviously go back my entire life, with Dad taking cars to various AACA, CCCA shows. He had all kinds of different cars, and he dragged me along with him. And many times I probably was too young to really appreciate and know what was going on around me, but gradually I gleaned all of that good stuff from Dad. At the same time, he also became a partner with Roger Penske. And in Roger's words, and this really meant a lot to me, because Roger very graciously joined our ownership group as well here at Lime Rock. But when he agreed to do so, he finished it up by saying, Dicky, so glad to be a part of Lime Rock Park, but you have to know that your dad was one of the guys that opened the barn doors for me. And so a real point of pride, that my father, who was pretty unassuming and not a hard driving corporate type, would have any kind of influence on a guy like Roger Penske. But moving ahead, we forged this entire bond around this place, but it kind of stemmed from a lot of the other car culture activities. Dad had some pretty special cars, one in particular, which is this 1931 DuPont, which is one of 30 DuPonts remaining in the world. I believe the company built a total of 561 cars between 1919 and 1931. And again, there are only 30 left on the planet today. I own 2.5 of them, which is kind of cool. The half a car is one of 3 children's cars that the company made. Tiny little thing with a single cylinder gas engine. It is the loudest car you have ever heard. But back to the 1931 Phaeton, Dad found that in 1962 in a New York Times classified listing when he was working at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and he was out on a ship, and he got a friend to investigate the car for him. It was in Indiana, and he ended up buying it. And true to Dad, flew out to Indiana and tried to drive it back, not realizing that 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden, the rotted tires would blow. And he ended up having to flatbed the thing all the way back to Delaware. Fast forward to 2002, 2003, the car was still in great shape. He used it all the time, picked me up from school in it. We did some picnics and, those kinds of things as a family. But it was always maybe most special for me. I have three sisters who all loved and appreciated all things automotive, but maybe not to the same extent that I did. And Dad commissioned a restoration of the car with the express intent to bring it out to Pebble Beach in 2005. And so we worked with RM and their wonderful group of craftsmen and restorers. And I've got photos of Dad when the car came off the truck, the reliable transporter, on the Monterey Peninsula in 2005 with tears in his eyes. And the car was just spectacular. That experience was, just an incredible weekend for my entire family. We were all there, my wife, daughter, son. They were very young at the time, but most for Dad. And
wow. And you ended up going back again in 2016, which was another special moment with the car, correct?
Yeah. The car is special, and it's one of one. It's a very imposing vehicle at probably 18.5, 19 feet long. It's got dual spare tires that hang off of the stern. Incredible flowing lines. It's black and white, and just has a grace, a presence, if you will, that speaks motion. Even when it's standing still. And it's an amazing car to drive. It's not easy to drive it, but it's a kind of like a velvet slipper, if you will. Very smooth, very quiet. And so we did well in the Pebble Beach Concours in 2005. The car crossed the podium twice, which is always a good thing. Winning best in class and then most elegant open car. And we were just delighted with that experience. And then lo and behold, got a call from Sandra Button, who said, "Hey, we've got a class of DuPonts, and the class will not be complete without your car." And so we were able to bring it back out in 2016.
Incredible. Just incredible story. The DuPont family really transformed the early automotive world in many ways. They had leadership roles that helped really define the multi-tiered nature of General Motors, saved Indian motorcycles from an early demise, and even the fast-drying paints and modern fabrics that have been on classic cars for a multitude of brands all trace back to the family's history. It is an automotive legacy that continues around the world. You must feel the gravity of that to some extent.
It's funny because having grown up in and around the duPont family in Delaware, there's a certain amount of, there's an incredible amount of pride because, for these brothers to have arrived in this country on January 1st, 1800, literally with the clothes on their backs, and having formed an amazing company that has provided great things and opportunities for thousands and thousands of people over the years, and all of the products that have influenced millions of people around the world, is an amazing legacy. At the same time, you got to make your own way. You got to forge your own path, and the family is huge. I think there are 7,000 family members or something, today in the whole lineage. And that sort of dynamic doesn't really extend out, in terms of my lifestyle. I mean, I try to kind of do everything I can here to make a difference with people that are important to me. And we have a group of 30 people who work full time here at Lime Rock Park, and it's just an honor to work with every one of them, because all of their talents collectively make this opportunity happen. And it's been the same opportunity that I've had in other companies, other organizations in which I've had the pleasure of working.
Let's talk about some of those other companies. There was this little company called Airstream with which you were involved. Talk about that a little bit, your experience there. And of course, we've had Bob Wheeler on this program.
Yeah, Bob is a great friend of mine, having worked together at Airstream for many years. I had the pleasure of hiring Bob from a fellow Thor Industries company to come and work at Airstream alongside me and many other people there, and ultimately then had the pleasure of appointing Bob president and CEO of Airstream, succeeding me, which was another great moment, honestly, in my life. Bob is an extreme talent, and that company is so lucky to have him there. I started out my career working in advertising and marketing, working with automotive brands. My first job was with McCaffrey and McCall Advertising, working on the Mercedes-Benz business, and developed a real love for that brand and products. Went on to work with Infiniti on their campaign, with General Motors on their corporate advertising campaign, and back with some Mercedes-Benz business along the way. But that was career stage number one. Went back to business school, got an MBA at Columbia University, and out of that experience joined Thor Industries, which at the time was a leading builder of travel trailers and fifth wheels and motorhomes, and also commercial buses. And now today has shed the bus business, but is the largest RV manufacturer in the world. One of their brands, Airstream, at the time had become a little bit moribund and had needed maybe a little more love and care. And I went out there with the great opportunity to run the company. And we started out with big aspirations and brought some design influence into the business, and was able to triple the size of the company in about 4 or 5 years. Really proud of that, and yet now look at what Bob Wheeler has done, and the company has exploded in size, even beyond what we were able to achieve in those early days.
And after Airstream, you launched Airstream to Go. What was that?
So my experience at Airstream was that it's not only the best product in the industry, in the RV industry, but it's also kind of a rarefied experience in that you had to buy one to experience it. And they're expensive, and yet the experience of using an Airstream is different and very, very special, and one that my family and I enjoyed together many, many times. I sought to develop a way for people to experience an Airstream without having to buy one. And so founding a travel company called Airstream to Go, where we provided the tow vehicles, the Airstream trailers, fully outfitted, all the travel planning through a partnership with a company called Off the Beaten Path. It's a leader in travel planning, particularly in the American West. And we would arrange a fully curated experience for our guests who paid a premium to travel with Airstream to Go. And we had 100% customer satisfaction in the experiences that we delivered. It was a difficult thing to pull off in many different locations, and ultimately the company had an insurance issue because we did have some accidents. And fortunately, nobody was ever hurt. But you're basically sending people out with $150,000 or $200,000 worth of apparatus, and they may have never towed before. They may or may not be comfortable driving generally, and so you're trying to teach people to do something that they weren't necessarily comfortable with from the get-go. And I still own all the Airstreams, and they're deployed around the country now, not in a travel company, but with hotel operators, so that they are static and yet are able to be used. And fortunately, knock on wood, are doing very well.
There's a whole culture around Airstream. We talked to Bob about that too. It's like its own entity of people who are completely into them. And I know you appreciate that, much like Lime Rock. There's a culture to all of it. And the mix of that culture is what brings the passion together. I'm guessing you've seen it in both your experience at Airstream and Airstream to Go, as well as your experience now.
I think what I used to say at Airstream, and then I realized here at Lime Rock, is exactly the same mission. Mm-hmm. Is that at Airstream, you're really helping people live their dreams. And they're out for a vacation with their family, and they've got this very expensive and very complicated product that's a house on wheels going 70 miles per hour down the highway. But if the product fails them, you have thwarted their opportunity to achieve that dream. And so it's a heady opportunity, and one that weighs on your shoulders. Fast forward to the experience here at Lime Rock Park. I've had that dream experience now dating back 40 something years to when my father and I were here together. And then I had my son Richard on the hillside here in 2001 as a 5-year-old. And he turns around to me and he says, "Daddy, this is the best day of my entire life." Entire life of 5 years, of course. But
yes,
I have a photo of him saying it. And when you realize that this place, Lime Rock Park, at 66 years old, is multi-generational, it's a heritage-focused entity, venue, and yet, we still have all those generations coming back here to live a dream, whether they're here as a fan, as a spectator, as a participant, a driver, a member of our drivers club, anybody who's here. And we have Skip Barber Racing School out here, one of our best partners, and they're here today as they are for 45 days per year. And I'm overlooking the park right now, looking at dozens of Skip Barber Racing School students out here living a dream. And, it's via our partner. So when I think about the overlaps between Airstream and Lime Rock Park, it's really not that difficult to create the linkage between what I was able to experience at Airstream and what I'm able to do here today.
Before we get back to this interview, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by Connected by Reynolds & Reynolds. If you want to hear great conversations and Greg Ulan going deep with guests on everything from used car acquisitions to finding your niche and selling to it, I recommend adding Connected to your podcast rotation. Now let's get back to my interview.
What is it about Lime Rock that's so captivating that maybe you didn't know before you got into it these last couple of years?
So we had some visitors yesterday, just 3 people who are considering having a wedding event here where the bridal party is going to get in cars and on track as a part of their pre-wedding festivities. And their experience walking into the park for the first time is much like anybody else who gets here for the first time. This is a spectacularly beautiful place. And when you think about Lime Rock Park as a racetrack, a lot of imagery is conjured up of, cement and bleachers and concrete all over the place and asphalt and, maybe more of an industrial setting. It could not be farther from the truth here at Lime Rock Park, where we are 400 acres of the Litchfield County, Connecticut hillside with not a single ticketed seat. We do not have a bleacher, a grandstand. We don't have anything to do with all of those normal expectations of a racetrack. Rather, you come here to Lime Rock Park for an event and you're coming with your family, your friends, you're setting up a picnic blanket. You are here on the hillside enjoying something in a really intimate environment. Skip Barber says that one of the real joys of coming to Lime Rock Park for an event like that is that you can walk the entire interior perimeter of the racetrack up close and personal with all the activity. And that includes some of the fastest racing in the country. Lime Rock Park, while short at only 1.5 miles long, is one of the fastest average speed racetracks in the country. And so you're going to see the world's best drivers here, and you're going to be up close and personal with them, which is a real benefit to our partners who want to always develop that kind of one-on-one dialogue between fan and driver, fan and team owner, fan and engineer. Any of those things are possible here, and uniquely so, I think.
So many famous names have raced. I'll just mention a few: Sterling Moss, Dan Gurney, Mario Andretti, even Paul Newman when he took up racing in the 1970s. It's got, if the track could talk, right? If the garages could talk, Dicky, they would tell stories that would be sensational.
You had to be pretty darn hardy as a racer or a team member back in the day. Lime Rock Park was founded in 1957, and Lime Rock has something to do with it. This was a quarry. It was rough and tumble. It was hewn out of the hillside, and for decades our paddocks were dirt, grass, and the paddocks that exist today that are fully paved and operating as we speak are still in the floodplain. And so this place as a natural environment, kind of requires a little bit of additional chutzpah, I guess, to make it happen here. And maybe those drivers of yore really saw it as that much more of a challenge. And also proud, I mentioned Roger Penske, very proud that Sam Posey is one of our owners as well. Sam lives locally here in Sharon, Connecticut, and our front straight is named the Sam Posey Straight, the back straight named for Paul Newman. And Sam tells these stories of his experience here, flying back from Le Mans, where he had won or podiumed. I think he may have won the race, but he got on a jet, flew to New York, got on a helicopter with the express intention of racing here at Lime Rock that next day, and wanted to land the helicopter here at the park. But there is a prohibition in the town of Salisbury, in which Lime Rock Park sits, that you cannot land an aircraft here. So he had to land just across the county line or the town line and get a police escort to get in here, where he quickly got into his driver's suit, got in the car, and won the race here at Lime Rock Park.
Wow, amazing stories. You mentioned it. It's for those who don't know, it's located in a largely residential neighborhood and has always had an issue with blue laws, as they're known, noise ordinances. You can't conduct a motorsports event on a Sunday. Does that help or hinder?
There's no question that it hinders. Yet it's been the condition here at Lime Rock Park since the injunction in the town of Salisbury in the state of Connecticut from 1959. And we operate here under what's called a stipulation agreement that dictates what we can and cannot do at Lime Rock Park. And I get it from the neighbors' perspective. We're all sensitive to noise and any kind of intrusion into our lifestyles. And when you look around these beautiful Northwest Connecticut hills, it's a very bucolic setting and a quiet lifestyle. Our aspiration at Lime Rock is to be the best neighbor possible and to do things that are where everything is transparent and the neighbors know what we're up to, and we're going to provide, all the opportunity for economic expansion here locally, while also being a fully respectful and participatory community member here. So all that mumbo jumbo being said, what it really means is that we've been working really closely with our neighborhood group. The Lime Rock Citizens Council is a very close relationship, has a close relationship with Lime Rock Park, and any opportunity for Sunday racing, that ship sailed a long time ago. So it's not in our business plan to operate racing on Sundays. Rather, we monetize Sundays in very different ways. We're the proud host of New England's premier horticultural event called Trade Secrets, where we're hosting
10,000 people, didn't you?
Thousands of people here, yeah. Probably not quite 10,000, but thousands. And, that is benefiting a local charity, formerly named Women's Support Services, now called Project Sage, that benefits domestic violence, education, and direct support for families that are having those challenges. You don't really think about that kind of an opportunity at a racing venue, but that's where we emphasize the word park in Lime Rock Park. We are unique for all those reasons I said in what we are as a natural environment, but a park allows you to do things like a horticultural event, things like Alzheimer's walks, dog shows, Scottish games, and bicycle events, all kinds of things that happen here on a regular basis, our community events at Lime Rock Park. And that's helping us monetize Sundays, car shows with our partner FCP Euro, very fast growing car parts retailer, online retailer based here in Connecticut. We do 6 or 7 Sunday motoring meets with FCP Euro during the year that celebrate their brand, their partners, their car parts partners like Liqui-Moly, Bosch, Schaeffler. All those brands come and activate here. And no, it's not racing or loud on a Sunday, but it's engagement with people that may come back for other events every other day of the week.
And as president and CEO of the park, you do have an obligation to the owners to return the investment. And you're a steward of the facility as well, which basically provides an obligation to bring the right and proper events to the area, as you say. So what other kind of events could LRP host? Concerts, maybe an Airstream caravan, carnivals?
Well, you got 50% right there. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to host concerts as a standalone basis. Or if I rephrase that, we would have to seek a special permit through the town of Salisbury to do so. So while we may be perfectly situated for a Rolling Stones concert, in a natural environment, I'm not so sure the neighborhood would welcome that. And so it might be harder to get a special permit for that type of event. Now, an Airstream event, lo and behold, we're actually hosting one this fall, our inaugural Camp Airstream event, where we have the local Connecticut chapter of the Airstream Club that is activating with Airstream Inc. Out of Ohio. And so my good friend Bob Wheeler is coming back to Lime Rock Park.
Nice.
And we will have situated around us dozens and dozens of Airstreams with great activities. And they are a part of other car activities that are happening on track during the day. So the Airstreamers are going to be able to be in cars on our FCP Euro proving grounds, driving the track, getting hot laps, and also interacting with the other groups that are here on track that day.
And under the category of economic expansion, just to continue your point a moment ago, I know you have other ideas. We've talked about a hotel, you've talked about a museum of the American sports car. How are you progressing on both of those ideas?
Well, there are a lot of capital expansion plans that go back to our master plan that is in place and is in process. The shiniest star that's on our horizon is the Delamar Lime Rock Hotel. And thankfully, our stipulation agreement basically allows any activity that is customary and accessory to our business as a racetrack. And a hotel is listed on that chart. So we are able and permitted to build a hotel here. And thankfully, one of my fellow general partners, Charles Mallory, who is head of the Greenwich Hospitality Group, owns the Delamar brand, which in the East and in Michigan offers some of the best hotel experience imaginable, including artisan restaurants and just an amazing experience. So we have a plan in place within the next couple of years to break ground on the Delamar Lime Rock Hotel, which as envisioned is a 48-room boutique hotel overlooking the Front Strait, overlooking the Sam Posey Strait. It's, in our estimation, it may be the finest hotel in association with a racetrack anywhere in the world. And that is an aspiration that will bring all good things to the northwest corner of Connecticut. It'll bring wonderful lodging in a unique location. It'll bring fine dining. It'll bring small conference facility. It'll bring a rooftop deck overlooking this wonderful racetrack and facility. It'll bring a spa, pool, all those kinds of different things. So that is in process. And, honestly, we're kind of queued up with other hotels that are in development by the Greenwich Hospitality Group today, including their Delamar at Mystic Seaport, which is in the other corner of the state.
Do you consult other track owners or other facilities around the world to see how you can expand the experience and make it just a more beneficial Lime Rock Park adventure for guests?
There's no question. I mean, I think the motorsports experience on a track has taken so many different paths, including all the motorsport country clubs, the private track facilities that are all around this country and internationally. And then even with more hybrid locations like Lime Rock Park, where we host professionally sanctioned racing. So this is a pro track. And part of the appeal is our heritage at 66 years and the fact that all those drivers that you listed have cut their teeth here or won championships here. But the pros drive Lime Rock Park. And I want to drive where the pros drive. And so, we can attract all kinds of different users here, whether it's Skip Barber Racing School on track today, our Lime Rock Drivers Club that gets people on track in a different way, track tapas programs where you're on tracks for an hour at a time, a taste of Lime Rock Park, all those different ways are just, exemplar of how we try to build our community around this place. A hotel, a lodging opportunity. We're not the first to do it. We're a member of the Road Racing Industry Council, which includes Laguna Seca and Watkins Glen and Sebring, and we are good friends and collaborative, if you will, with all those other track operators. Probably our closest example and a track to which we aspire locally here on the East Coast might be Virginia International Raceway. Mm-hmm. And our friends Kerrigan, who runs it, and Connie Nyholm, who's the owner. They influence us without maybe even knowing that they do. I've been to VIR many times, and I stayed in their hotel. And it's a different experience when you're there for a racing event, you're there for a Skip Barber Racing School event, to be able to stay on site and have a meal on site and to maybe soak in more of the experience. So we feel like we have the license, we have the opportunity to expand the appeal of Lime Rock Park in different ways, not just as a spectator or participant, but somebody who could be here maybe just for a hotel night stay because their son or daughter is attending one of these prep schools right around the area.
And where did the idea of a museum come in?
Well, the museum is a natural here. I don't know that it has to be a formal museum, but it could be some kind of, it could be a rotating display of different sports cars. We feel like our DNA with the sports car gives us license to explore opportunities to promote our heritage and also promote the future of what a sports car might be going forward. Just this weekend with Grid Life, we've got a Tesla Model 3 race series that's on track with us here. So promoting whatever that future may be, we want to be agnostic to what happens here on track. We want everybody to be able to use this beautiful facility to help achieve their objectives.
You're also reaching out to different types of organizations in order to build significant partnerships. And I want to talk for a moment about Women in Motorsports North America, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enabling opportunities for women across all motorsport disciplines. You now have a significant venue alliance. What does that allow both groups to do?
I'm just delighted that you brought that up. I wasn't sure if that had hit the radar screen yet. We just announced that alliance just a couple of weeks ago at our FCP Euro IMSA Northeast Grand Prix presented by Liqui Moly. And that event brought together so many partners in motorsports that at the highest level here at Lime Rock Park really represent all tendrils, all tangents of the industry. And Women in Motorsports North America is a really important entity, and I think a natural partner here at Lime Rock Park. We announced in July that Lime Rock Park would be WIMNA's Northeast home, and that can be just fluff, or it could be really meaningful. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be very meaningful here because we have, an inherent obligation to grow the future of motorsports because it's our livelihood. And it's my livelihood. I got to make it work here at Lime Rock Park. But if I look at the high tide that's in motorsports and cars and the culture around the automobile today, we need more participants in all levels, in all facets of the industry. And so when we announce something with Women in Motorsports, we're not just talking about the female drivers or team owners. We're talking about engineers. We're talking about mechanics and marketing and public relations leaders. We need every person to really appreciate the power of this industry and what it can do to propel amazing careers. And so maybe it's a little selfish for us at Lime Rock Park to bring in a partner like WIMNA, but ultimately it's for the good of the entire industry.
Yeah, and in fact, co-chairs Beth Peretta and Lynn St. James, Lynn's been on this program as well,
Yep.
have talked about the influence and the accomplishments that can be achieved across motorsports disciplines, including drivers and engineers and mechanics and team managers. There's a whole field that can be explored here, right, Dicky?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I've mentioned Skip Barber Racing School that's here on track right now. Well, Cindy Sisson, who is the executive director of Women in Motorsports North America, she was in the car with Skip Barber Racing School doing the school this week, and so here at Lime Rock Park. So here you have an example of a synergy that's being brought together through all these partners that recognize that motorsports needs inclusion, we need participation, and it's going to come from everywhere. And there are just some fantastic women leaders in motorsports already. We have them here at Lime Rock Park, and an alliance with WIMNA is a celebration of each and every one of them as well.
You mentioned it at the beginning of the interview, but I want to go back to what you said earlier. Your son, Richard, 27 years old and an owner now. What is Richard learning about being a part of Lime Rock Park and being completely vested in the project?
Well, this is the same kid that, before he could walk, he was flipping his stroller over so he could play with the wheels, playing with the wheels and spinning things and looking out
it's in the Riegel blood.
looking out a New York City apartment window and looking at all the trucks going by and the buses and things. And then at age 5, up here on the hillside, overlooking the left-hander at Lime Rock Park and saying it's the best day of his whole life. So to say that automobiles are in his blood is a true statement. I mean, he really loves it. And yet, the ownership experience here at Lime Rock Park, it was a great thing for us to be able to do it together. We have a Spec Miata that we race together as part of the Lime Rock Drivers Club. No, we don't do it at the same time. We're in, sequentially.
Right.
So there's barely enough room in that little thing for me. So his opportunity here is only going to grow because we have plenty of owners that are a little longer in the tooth, that have more miles under their tires than Richard does, but he brings an experience level that's kind of already built in its own right, but he also brings a youthful perspective that's going to help us transition Lime Rock Park to the future. When we look at our demographics here, we're a 66-year-old facility. We're multi-generational. We have grandfathers that are bringing kids here. It is up to us to attract a younger participant, a younger enthusiast to propel the future of our sport. And we're doing that. I've told you about Grid Life, which we attracted here to Lime Rock Park. Last year was their first year, and kicking off in 2 days is Grid Life Circuit Legends at Lime Rock Park. We have a 3-year commitment with Grid Life, and I mention them specifically because over the thousands of people that were here last year, we know that 75 or 80% of those people were first timers to Lime Rock Park. And when you think about that and what it means for our future, to now create something magical with a partner like Grid Life, we can literally build the future of Lime Rock Park through a younger audience. And that's a really fun thing to be a part of. So my son, Richard Riegel, has as much to do with that as anybody, and helping us to build that future.
A couple final things I want to ask you about what you do in your spare time when you're not running the facility, but I happen to notice that not only are you doing what you do on a daily basis, but you're also an avid skier, you're a golfer, you're a hockey player, you're a fisherman, you're a racer, and I know that you have competed in a Mini Cooper at the facility. Do you still race?
I race with the Lime Rock Drivers Club in that aforementioned tiny Mazda Miata. And it's a bit like going to the circus, watching me get in and out of the thing. Like you said earlier, I'm 6'7", so I'm not really built well for a small race car. But we've made it work, and it's a ton of fun. I raced in Grand Am for 5 or 6 years, really as fully on the Am side of the Pro-Am series. But we had some success, including a podium finish here at Lime Rock in front of my kids, which was awesome.
There's nothing better, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. But that, it's definitely not my vocation. It's something that I really love to do, and I get to do so here at the park because I get to test the product, if you will. All those other things, I love to ski with my family, and I do play hockey twice a week. I've had a knee replacement and a shoulder surgery, and I can't run and do all those sort of pounding activities anymore. So I can push some skates around, and trust me, it's a version of hockey that you may not recognize. It's not particularly graceful or high level, but I have a lot of fun with it. So it's good to be active and good to be able to do all those things. So I enjoy it.
41 years ago, you were in that 1931 DuPont going 35 miles an hour in a moment that you'll never forget, as you said. What would be the automotive legacy that you want to leave, Dicky?
I think it's interesting because I look to my partner, Skip Barber, who now in his mid 80s, has lived such an unbelievable and successful career, both with his ownership of Lime Rock Park, his founding, and his eponymous Skip Barber Racing School, all those things that Skip is known for. Including his racing career. He's a Harvard-educated guy who raced Formula One. So I think there are very few, maybe only one of those that are out there. But I look at Skip in terms of as he considered, what was next for Lime Rock Park and leaving a legacy. I don't think Skip's legacy is necessarily, he wouldn't consider it the racing school. Sure, it bears his name, but it's not really what his legacy is. His legacy may be more indelibly etched into these green, hillsides here at Lime Rock Park. And maybe, a decade, two down the road, maybe I have a part of that as well. And it gets back to helping people live their dreams. And if we've been able to put some smiles on people's faces, whether they're driving a streetcar on this world famous road circuit, whether they are the highest level racer that's here and also smiling because they get to drive here, whether it's a fan sitting on the hillside, or whether it's a woman who's a gardener who's here for the Trade Secrets show in May at Lime Rock Park. That dream and sort of delivering that opportunity, maybe that's a legacy. And I think that's worth aspiration.
Wonderful. You've put a smile on the faces of our listeners. I know that. Dicky, thank you so much for being part of Cars and Culture. You are part of Cars and Culture.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it. And to the Cars and Culture audience, thanks so much. And everybody is invited to come here to Lime Rock Park. We hope to see you.
Excellent. Thanks again to my guest today, Lime Rock Park President and CEO, Dicky Riegel. And to see my interview with Dicky, go to the Cars and Culture YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to see more than 115 interviews and nearly 1,000 videos. And thanks for listening. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and on Instagram at Cars and Culture SXM, and on Twitter at Cars Culture SXM. I'm Jason Stein. We'll see you down the road.